Hi, I hope you're doing well. If you just installed VS Code.net and Git, now we are going to see how do they work, why are we using them, and just a quick overview about them. And I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that you can use on VS Code to code faster. So let's start with VS Code. VS Code is a IDE, an integrated development environment. And this is just an application that helps us, that brings tools to help us develop faster and better. We have many options of IDEs. We have Visual Studio Community, we have Writer, but I do prefer Visual Studio Code because in terms of memory, it's very light. And you can program with anything. You can program with C#, Python, HTML, CSS, JS, and React, many other things. You just need to have the necessary extensions installed. What I also like about Visual Studio is the clean design, and you can customize it. You can choose a theme that you like, and you can choose file icons that you like, and also customize fonts and the spacing, the size of the fonts. And I'm going to show you all of that soon. Okay, so the main part here on VS Code is the sidebar. We have many tabs in here. First one is the File Explorer. Here we can go through our projects. You can see all the folders, you can see all the files with the extensions. So here is just a way to navigate through your project. Next we have the search. Basically the search, you can search anything within the code or file names. So I can just, write this here, and you can see that this register word appears in all of these files this many times, and I can just click here and this will take me to the line in that file. We also have replace here, which will replace this word by something else. So I can just register test, and this button will replace all. So all of these registers here will be replaced with this register test. Here we can match case if it is case sensitive, which means if this is just going to search register with a uppercase in the R, or if it is also going to work for a lowercase in the R. The next tab is the source control. Here's where we are going to see all the files that we have changed, all the files we deleted or created, and this is controlled by Git. All of these files here, which have a U, means untracked. The files with them is modified, and U is deleted, and this is all coming from Git. So down here with this graph beside that changes, we can see the history of our project, the branches, the commits. You can see that here we have a fix, and here I merged the branch. So, and this is the latest commit. So that's it. The source control is just for that. It's just so you can see the things that you have changed in the file, and you can open the file, you can discard the changes, which means it will go back to what it was before. And here you can stage the change and commit it after. Next tab is run and debug. In this tab, we can run the application through Visual Studio Code and debug it at the same time. So you can put a breakpoint, and we will talk about debug and handling errors and all of that later on. But this tab is just to run the application and debug it. And then we have extensions. Here's where we have all the extensions installed. You can see that I have a lot of extensions. And this is just for the C# profile. For each profile, we have the necessary extensions installed for that profile. So if I change my profile to the React profile, you will see that we have different extensions here. We have the Tailwind, Clock, and another theme. Pretty different from what we have in the .NET C# profile. Okay, so here are some tricks and tips that you can use on VS Code. You can come here to the Terminal tab and open a new terminal. And instead of opening a CMD or Windows PowerShell in your computer, you can open a terminal within the VS Code. And this is just the same thing as we did in the last video. Now here are some things that you can do with the keyboard. If you press Alt Shift and then choose an arrow up or down. So if I choose the down arrow, it will duplicate the line in the line below. If I press Alt Shift and then the up arrow, it will duplicate the line in the line above. I can also duplicate the cursor if I press Ctrl Alt and then the arrows. If I go down, it will duplicate the cursor as many times as I want. And the same thing works if I duplicate it upwards with the up arrow. Now we can also select the same word multiple times. I can, for example, select this I repository, and then I can press Ctrl D, and you can see that it is selecting the I repository. So I can select maybe this 5 and write something, and it will work for all of them. Now I can also select all of them at the same time. If I don't need to go Ctrl D like all the time clicking D. I can select the word and press Ctrl Shift L, and then I'm going to select all the words within this file. We can also go to Zen mode, which is only the code will appear in the screen. For that, we can press Ctrl K, then release Ctrl and press Z, but not as slowly as I did. Ctrl K, release Ctrl Z, and this is the view that we get. So only the code, all the files will appear up here, and we can still go through the project. Here we have the Explorer, the search, the source control, and if we want to get out of this Zen mode, we use the same command, Ctrl K, release Ctrl and press Z, or you can press ESC, and this will get you out of the mode. Now there is also something that comes with Writer, which is showing implicit types, and we can set it up here in File. Then we go to Preferences and Settings. Another thing is that here in Preferences, you can choose your profile also. You don't need to go in the comment palette like I do, but I think it is easier. So here you can search for hints, and then you will see that I have it off, but you can turn it on if you like. And down here we have C# hints, and I'm just gonna enable all of them so you can see what it looks like. Now if I come back here, you can see that this property is called filter, and it has this type of account balance history record, and you can see the name and the types for everything in here. I don't really like this. I think it takes a lot of space on the screen, so I like to keep it off. And I'm going to keep it off. And in here, in the settings, you have a lot of other settings. You can configure the font size. You can configure how will this appear, like this, the tabs, if you want them on the side, if you want them at the top or at the bottom. And you can configure all of that here on the settings. You can also configure it in the JSON file with Ctrl-Shift-P to open the comment palette, and then you go for user settings JSON. You can see there, preferences, open user settings JSON, and here you can configure these settings how you would like to have your IDE configured. So you can see that I have a font of JetBrains Mono. I have a font size of 14.3, a line height of 1.5. Here I have the icon theme symbols. So the reason why I use JetBrains Mono is it just looks prettier, you know, like this arrow in here. This is like a equal and greater than sign. So these are two different characters, right? And when they are together, they make like a different view, you know, they display differently. So like I said, you can hit Ctrl-Shift-P to open the comment palette, or you can come here to the search bar and give it a major, a greater than sign, like the sign here. And you can choose a comment from Visual Studio Code or a comment from any extension that you have installed. You can also, instead of putting the greater than sign, you can put a at, and this will give you access to all of the properties and all of the functions, all of the methods of your class or in this file. So here I have access to everything, and then I can go to a certain method. You know, if you have a method with 200 lines, so you can just give it an at and then select the method that you want. If you don't put anything, you can search for files. So like if I wanted to see my repository, here you go, and I can see my repository, I can see the interface for my repository, and just like that, you know, you can search for files, you can execute commands, you can go to methods. And another thing that you can do, which is very cool, is press Ctrl, and whatever the class is, you can go to the definition, or you can see where this class is being used. So right here, I am in the definition of this class, this abstract class repository. So when I click Ctrl and click on the class, I'm going to see where it is being used. So in all of these files, in all of these lines, I have this class, this abstract class being used. And for example, this iMongo context, this is not the definition of this interface, so I can press Ctrl and click on it. You can see that it turns into a link, and I can click on that and I go to the definition of this interface. So a new update from VS Code is this chat here, which is an AI chat, and it takes the current file as context. So you can see that I am in the register service, and you can see that down here, the AI chat is also taking register service as context. But if we change files, it changes down there. We can also add more files or folders as context, so the response is more accurate. And we can ask, you know, we have different modes here. You can ask, or it can work like an agent, which will affect our project. It will ask for permission to write everything, but it will write code by itself. And it can also you can also choose edit, which will just edit the files in your workspace. And here we can also change the LLM, the large language model, the type of AI that we want to use. But the way that I like to use it is just I give it as much context as I want. If I am having any problem, then I ask it for a fix and I ask it to explain to me why does that fix work. So I can then understand what's going on, and I can implement it myself. If you are already a junior or a senior developer, you know, using the AI chat to make her work faster, create the files and projects for you, you know, that's totally okay. But I don't think that's a good idea for new developers, because it is important for you to understand how the code works. And if you have the AI chat writing everything for you, that would be tough. Okay, so now we can talk a little bit about .NET. .NET is a platform, is free to use. You don't need to pay anything to use .NET. It is also open source, so you have access to the project. It is a cross-platform framework, so it works for Windows, it works for macOS, it works for Linux. And it uses C# as one of its languages. You can also use F# or Visual Basic, but C# is the most popular. C# is a strongly typed, high-level, object-oriented language. A strongly typed language means that for every variable, you need to define a data type. So if you have a variable, you need to say if it is a string, if it is a float, if it is a int, and this is very important for everything to work. An example of a weakly typed language would be JavaScript, where we can say var or let and then give it a variable name and say that it is a string, and then change for a number, and then a floating number or an array, or anything. We don't need to define a data type for a variable in JavaScript. In C# or in any strongly typed language, whenever you define a variable, you need to define a data type, and if you say it is a string, you need to pass a string. You can say it is a string and then pass a number. This will give you a syntax error. A high-level language means that it is closer to what we understand than what the machine understands. An example of a low-level language would be Rust, C, and assembly. And we also have the object-oriented programming part, which we'll see in the future. So when we talk about .NET, we are talking about a framework, a huge framework with a complex workflow. It has many uses. You can use .NET MAUI to develop mobile applications. You can use ASP.NET. ASP stands for Active Server Pages, and this is the part where we use to build web apps. So basically we have a lot of frameworks. We have .NET MAUI for mobile, we have ASP.NET for web apps, and we have this huge framework .NET, which brings us a lot of tools that will help us code faster and more efficiently. With .NET, you can work with different languages like C#, F#, Visual Basic. Then each of those languages has a compiler that will compile this high-level code and turns into IL, which means intermediate language, or it can also defined as MS-IL, MCIL, or CIL, Common Intermediate Language, but it's all the same. In the end, there will be a executable file or a DLL, and then this executable file or this DLL will be executed by the Git compiler, which will transform this code to native code and execute it on the CPU. So when we talk about frameworks, it can be .NET or it can be a React framework. We're just talking about a set of reusable tools and a good structure to develop faster and efficiently. With .NET, it will bring us a lot of tools. We can work with strings with the string builder. We can serialize and deserialize JSONs with the JSON serializer. There's a lot of built-in libraries that we can use, and there's also libraries that were made by someone or by some company that will also help us develop. .NET also has this incredible feature, which is the garbage collector. So whenever we create a variable, it can be a value type or it can be a reference type. This will be allocated on the memory, and after some time the garbage collector will deallocate this from the memory, which is pretty useful. We don't have to worry about it. For example, in Rust, you have to allocate and deallocate whenever you don't need it anymore. So .NET takes care of a lot of things for us. So as I mentioned before, .NET compiles code. A compiler means that it will analyze the code, then we'll take this code and turn it into a low-level code instead of an interpreter. An interpreter will run the code line by line, and whenever the interpreter identifies an error, it will stop executing and give the error. But with a compiler, it will analyze the code. If it has any errors, it won't compile, and if it doesn't, then it will and create the executable or the DLL. Now this is just an overview about .NET. It is way more than this. I'm going to leave some links in the description so you can research yourself, but the more you practice with, the more projects you create with .NET, the more you practice C#, the easier it will be for you to develop with this great framework. Now about Git, it's very important to use Git. It is used worldwide. Git is a distributed version control system. A version control system has two main goals. The first one is to track the history and the development of the project, and we do that by commits. So you will see a commit with project start, and then a commit with edit a file, and then another commit with X feature. And the second main goal is working together with a team, which is very hard when you have a centralized version control system like Team Foundation. With Git, you have a distributed version control system. It means that you have the projects on your machine, and then your coworkers will have, each one of them will have a project on their machine also. And then you may also have a main project in a server where you all are going to save the development that you're doing. Now, when you are working with multiple people, when you have a lot of coworkers and, more than 5 people working on the same project, it gets a bit confusing. So there is this feature on Git which is branching. Each person has a branch, each feature has a branch, and then each person can work on one feature and doing the comments on this feature, so you can track the development of the feature, and then you merge the feature into the main branch. Now, when you and a coworker are working on different features and then you merge to the main branch, it usually doesn't have any problems because you're working on different features and creating and modifying different files. But sometimes you will edit the same page, the same file. And when two people modify the same file and you merge to the main branch, it will clash, will create a problem. But Git will warn you and you can resolve it. You can rewrite the file and commit it again. So just to make it short, an IDE is the application that we'll use to develop. The .NET is a platform that will provide us a lot of tools to help us develop efficiently and fast. And then we also have Git, which will track the history of our project. So that's it. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments. If you have any doubts about what I just said or anything related to this video, leave it in the comments. And if this helped you, make sure to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.